photos, didn't he?
At his wedding.
Yeah.
And I just invested in a bit of chewing gum and kind of moulded it in. Yeah, turgid stuff. Good. I was struggling to look for bright spots. What I came up with was good to see Gaz Ellis play his first game since April. Talismanic for that Hull side. And the other interesting thing I saw was that all of Huddersfield's points came from people who would be asterisk Scottish. So you got McIntosh, McGilvray and Brough.
Well,
so there you go. That's what I came out of this game with. It was pretty turgid, but fair play to Hull for the win.
The thing I would suggest is Hull FC fans are worried about something, but the thing I maybe wouldn't be worried about from them is a defence, because even the two Huddersfield tries that were scored out wide. Maybe worry about Mahe Fanua's defence because he completely shot the line that created the gap for Rankin to put the ball through for McIntosh's. But McGilvery's came late in the half and they were kind of a bit drawn out there, I think. And people would be getting tired, especially with your better players off the field, because the rotation was certainly one-sided in terms of the quality of the players that they had on for Hull FC and then replaced them with. But conversely, the two tries they scored were down the middle and looked quite kind of shambolic defending a little bit for Huddersfield. So if a team can get more concerted attack and tire Huddersfield out, I think one thing that'll jump out from the individual stats is down the middle they tired out Ikehefo because he made an extraordinary number of tackles compared to what he normally makes. And it did have a limiting effect on the amount of metres he made, but not on the other stuff he does really well. But it gave maybe an indication of how to attack them a little bit there.
Yeah, go at the big guys and make them pull on the back foot.
But if that takes away something from your own expansiveness, I don't know. But it clearly worked well enough for Hull FC. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's, there's not a great deal more you can add to it, is it? It was a bit of a turgid game. It worked well for them. They should be worried, I think, ahead of the semi-final next week.
They'd take an ugly horse over a horse getting put down, which was what they were after the Challenge Cup win last year.
Exactly. And if Taylor is playing injured, when do you rest him now? He's not going to get rested next weekend, is he?
Is he? I don't know if he is.
That's what I'm saying. If he is carrying a knock, when do you buy some time for him to recover?
He just works so hard. I think that's what it is. I think he puts himself in for more carries of the ball than maybe some of the other middlemen, and maybe that's why. One thing that disappoints me for Hull FC, because I think Bowden's actually quite good, better when he starts. For me. In tandem with either Taylor or Watts, and I think
he seems to have more confidence when he's got one of them.
If I'm right, they brought him off the bench and Chris Green off the bench too. Now Chris Green is a poor man's Liam Watts for me when I watch him play. I hoped he'd come on a bit more this year, and he's not really had enough game time because of injuries, I guess, because of obviously the crisis we hear all about. But
it's a terrible one.
But and they didn't have anything to change it up. I mean, Fash and Washbrook aren't going to frighten you off the bench. It kind of so dull off the bench a little bit. That was the problem from that four off the bench. If you swap that around and had Watts coming in off the back of Bowden starting or Taylor coming in, I think you'd be more wary as the opposing team. So maybe that's a team tinkering selection thing we can do.
Yeah, just manage the interchange bench, but slightly better. Very good. Okay, stats on this one then, what did they tell us?
Pretty evenly matched stats. Giants just about made more metres and fewer errors. Hull FC just about made more breaks and gave away fewer penalties. Hull also had a better team tackle success and won the positive-negative play differential by +16. So on that evidence, they deserve the win.
Okay, individually, who stood out for us then? This looks like a who's who of Hull FC.
Yeah, Liam Watts, 139 metres. Danny, mate, both ways. Houghton, 1 try assist, 50 tackles. Scott Taylor 176 metres, Mahe Fainua 160 metres and 3 clean breaks. God, they're going to miss him. Vatuli Tauno 123 metres. An interesting note on Danny Houghton, he's now overtaken Matt Parcell, who didn't play this week, as the top tackler in the Super League this year, despite only playing 16 games.
Bloody hell, there you go. For Huddersfield, who stood out for us?
Well, Jeremy McGilvray, who's become the top metre maker in Super League, 1 try and 172 metres. Jordan Rankin, 1 try assist, 221 metres for the fullback, so obviously took a lot of kicks. Leroy Cudjoe 147 metres. Sebastian Ikehefo 40 tackles, 14 of which were marker tackles. That's doing overtime for that big man. You don't see
that shows that they've focused up on him then, isn't it? Run the ball at him, get him involved in tackles and make him
Yeah,
make him work.
Still 5 tackles and 3 successful off-loads though. Akuma Tai, 103 metres off the bench.
There you go, fair play. Okay, so at the same time on Friday night, Leeds Centurions were recording a surprise 25-0 victory over the Salford Red Devils at the Leeds Sports Village in front of 7,002, refereed by Jack Smith.
Yeah, big moral booster, I guess, though. Brian Davies followed this one on Twitter. I think he's gone for a full Bri of Super League games this week, as Bri. Followed this one on Twitter. 3 first half tries.
Has ruined the full Bri now by making it almost impossible to attain.
3 first half tries put Lee in control. Their defence was great, but both teams made loads of errors in the rain. Second half was poor. Lee got a drop goal and then a last-minute converted try to drop Salford from 3rd to 5th, giving Wakey their advantage in points difference.
There you go. So yeah, it's not a comfortable
Well, we'll get to that 3rd to 5th situation.
Not useful for Salford capitulating in such a fashion, and it was. I wouldn't have picked this had I been around last week.
No, I didn't. It was the one I missed out on.
Yeah.
When everyone was at the Wigan game, seeing this score come through at half time, it was 18-0. They were like, "Oh well, Salford will have put half a team out as well." And in actual fact, I don't think they did. I think it was pretty much the team that played the week before and the week before that. It's just
there's big names in that team, isn't there?
They are suffering from missing Craig Kopchak. I think that's a big miss for them because they do have limited depth in the front row, but they still had. I don't know why they let Hassan go to Wakefield.
Well, they rate Murray, don't they? They rate Murray. He was on loan at Bradford and looked like a machine, and they do rate him quite highly. But
I mean, they still had Griffin and Tassie and Krasnicki, who have been regulars all season and performing quite well all season.
And that back line's all right. Edwards, Johnson, Wellham, Sow, and Bibby. Carney and Dobson in the halves. This is not a rested, rotated team.
No, I mean, they lost convicted spousal abuser Robert Louis to concussion early in the second half. But
that's a better guy.
But to be honest, that wouldn't expect
only makes me want them to win more.
It wouldn't expect them to derail them sufficiently, would it?
No.
Specialist, I don't think, is having as much impact at hooker as he's been having as a running standoff.
No, definitely not.
Earlier in the season, from the highlights of this, the first try in this one, Greg McNally's try from the scrum, was just, where was the defence? There was so much space for him to go into. They could have had 3 men in without a defender outside them. That was a walkthrough. It did start the trend of the weekend, which was kick and chase tries.
Right.
Greg McNally's last try on the hooter that Brian mentioned in his review was quite an impressive one. I don't think it was as
good as Sam Tompkins, did you not?
I don't think it was as good as some of the other ones we saw over the weekend, but it was from further out.
Yeah.
So yeah, he received them off.
To be fair, I'll play devil's advocate. I'm inclined to agree with you.
Chipped it over the line, picked it back up, and had the pace to get away. But at that point, I don't think everyone was necessarily trying the hardest.
It was all over by the shouting at that point, wasn't it? Yeah, definitely. So what do you put it down to? Salford just not being right in terms of their attitude on the day, or Lee having just thrown caution to the wind and caught Salford on the hop?
I think it's more Salford are in bad form. They've lost. I can't remember what the run they're actually on. Actually, I don't know if you've got it up in front of you. But I think it's something like 6 out of 7 games or 5 out of 7 games or something they've lost. I don't have my spreadsheets up on my tablet, but basically they're not in great form. They are missing the most influential forward, and they're trying to find something that works out of the backs that helps get them on the front foot, and it's not really happening. So I think it's more a combination of those things. Plus, this would have been another game Lee would have circled. The home games against Wigan and Salford were probably the
cup finals,
the most significant games in the calendar for the club. I would think.
Yeah, definitely so.
And 7,002 was quite a healthy attendance, I'd say.
There you go. Okay. Credit to. I prefer to give Lee the credit for the victory than say it's a broken Salford side, because there's a lot of big name players in that Salford team.
Well, I mean, that's what we're saying, yeah.
So what do the stats tell us on this one then?
They say that with 299 more metres, 1.6 metres per carry better average gain and 3 more breaks. This wasn't a fluke for Lee. They also conceded 2 fewer penalties and had a 1.9 better team tackle success. That's reversing.
See what happens when you win the penalty count.
And it's going to be interesting to see who manages to fuck up the penalty count most for themselves next week between Wigan and Salford.
Wow, yeah, there you go. Okay, individually, who stood out for us?
Greg McNally with 2 tries, 116 metres, 2 clean breaks. Sammy Soni Langi with 1 try and 136 metres. And it's probably the most contested, shall we say, try of them all, where he got squeezed into the corner and had to battle for a few players. The other ones were quite easy, it felt like, for Lee. Lachlan Burr, 40 tackles and 185 metres, so he worked really hard. Greg Richards, 112 metres. Danny Tickle, 108 metres. And I think it was that hard work from some of those forwards that's really helped get them over the line. For the Salford side, another interesting highlight of maybe tactical ploy. Ben Murdoch-Masila was made to make 41 tackles and 10 marker tackles. I mean, his effectiveness reduces if you make him make 20 tackles. Making him make 40 tackles is really slowing him down. Olsey Krasnicki, 40 tackles. Greg Johnson, 113 metres, and Chris Wellham, 107 metres.
Yeah, there you go, a lot of hard work in defence. At the same time then, over at the DW, your world champion Wigan Warriors were beating Leeds Rhinos 34 points 2-0 in front of 15,119, refereed by Benjamin Thaler.
Yeah, and Brian Davies, we start with, he said, Wigan were much better than Leeds under-19s, well done to them. If Wigan were in the Academy League, they might even make the top 4 based on that performance. I think you'll find we're top of the under-19s league, Brian Davies. Shame Leeds gave their first team the night off. Anything good about the game? Only that neither side is likely to be in the grand final, as that's bound to be between Cass and Wakey.
Aidan Stalker said, I was looking forward to a good Friday night game until I saw the Leeds side. Add the crap weather and it was fairly grim viewing. Tried to learn something about a few of the Leeds youngsters but couldn't find much from that either. This review is probably as boring as the game. Underpants.
_throw. Jake said, well, that was odd. We scored no points, we conceded over 30, we frequently look like boys against men, but I suspect Wigan fans will be less happy with the result. No. With the bad weather contributing to the amount of drop ball, Wigan should only have made more with their superiority in size, skill and experience. The fact that Wigan only managed to score 34 spoke volumes about their current mediocrity. Leeds were well beaten on the night, but there were enough glimmers through the storm clouds to suggest that our youngsters have a bright future ahead, whether that's with Leeds or some other team, Warrington.
There you go. Paul Michael Craig, the Thunder from Down Under, said, so many teenagers got fucked in hard. Sorry, I'll start again because this deserves a good run up. So many teenagers got fucked hard in this game, I thought the DW was R. Kelly's basement. Ha!
What's the story behind that?
R. Kelly runs a music school for attractive young women.
Oh, right.
Basically, that's about it.
Right. My finger's way off the pulse when it comes to R. Kelly news. Mitchell Dart said, despite wrestling half the population of Leeds...
Hang on, can I just stress at this point that I'm not a massive R. Kelly fan, I just read the story.
Despite wrestling half of the population of Leeds, to lose by only 34 wasn't too bad at all.
Rich Wilkinson said, a great effort from the kids, but Wigan had too much for Leeds to compete. A great night out. I had the pleasure of meeting Mark Illingworth. Yeah,
it was my pleasure, certainly, Rich. It was great. Brendan Loftus at BP Loftus said, probably the worst ever Wigan Leeds game that I have seen. I saw a Wigan fan say the same thing, and they at the qualifier, and I was at the 70-0.
Very good.
How far off Wigan's first choice side was that mark? I get that the Leeds side was totally different from what we'll play in the cup semi, which leads me to my next point. As far away as entertainment could be, just hope it's a blip from both sides. I made it 4 players away from our first choice side,
right, with
no Don Manfredi, no Liam Farrell, who's probably the most significant miss of them all, no Ben Flower, and no Joel Tompkins. However, it's a fine point. It's at this stage of the season, that's not a far cry away from our best side, and it was a far cry away from what could have been the performance we could have put on.
Listen,
part of why the scoreline looked so low as it was Wigan failing to execute properly in the first half, and a couple of no-try decisions. I'm still not convinced about the obstruction one. I feel like there's nothing JJB could have done. He made half a step towards the player with the ball. By the time he then decided to make half a step the other way, he kind of went into the dummy runner rather than the other way round, but the dummy runner maybe could have just got a bit more through the hole and it would have been okay. Willie Eiston messes up plays. Simple ass. He gets in the way of movements. He doesn't get the ball down on the try line somehow mysteriously when he's free in space. So for all his hard work and endeavour,